And we are live.
Welcome back to Black Pro.
Yay! It's been so long.
It's been so long. We've been gone.
Oh my gosh. We are a mess.
We are, but real talk, we have been gone for a while. So
I know. I feel like out of practice with this.
yeah. It's like, forgive us, guys. We're probably gonna mess up.
I know. We got to do the intro first. I'm going to do it real quick.
Okay.
But first, can you hear me? Because my computer is spazzing out.
Yeah, I can hear you. It doesn't sound like you're breaking up or anything.
Okay, good. My computer's tripping. But anyways, welcome back, y'all, to Black Pros Podcast, where Black lives, Black voices, and Black stories have always mattered. Tonight, we are going to be talking 50 Shades of Shit. My name is Oshale, also known as Oshi Reads here on the internets.
Hey, everybody. I'm Brittany, aka Melanin Eclectic, everywhere on Beyonce's internet. How are y'all doing today?
Yes. How are y'all? New week.
I haven't spoken in a very long time.
It's been a very long time since we have been here.
Like, how's the panini treating y'all?
For real.
How's life? How's work?
Yeah, how y'all doing for real? Like, we feel like we haven't had a chance to catch up with our loyal supporters for over a month. I think the last time we went live was when we talked about our book pick, I think.
Yeah,
From
the
last quarter.
last time we went live was our last book. Was when we were talking about control.
Okay, so first of all, let's just say that we have been going through it individually.
Going through it might not even be the word. Like,
it might not.
At this point, I'm convinced that something great is going to be happening to us very soon because, like, you know what they say, like, when, like, oh, you know, it's hardest before, like, the end. Like, if that's where I'm at, God, like, cool, but it can't keep going too much longer because I don't know how much more I can do.
Right, like, it's darkest right before the dawn type shit. Like, it's very dark in some ways right now. And I don't know about you, Brittany, but for me, it almost feels like a delayed reaction from 2020.
I don't even know, because 2020 was horrible for me as well. Like,
But
I really went into 2021 with a whole level of optimism that has just been shot, like, 3 times. 3-4 times this year.
For me, it's been more, I feel like 2020 for me was a roller coaster, but it was almost like we were all in the same boat. So there was a level of camaraderie to it. There was a level of like, well, we're all kind of fucked. We're all like stuck at home. We're all wondering what's going to happen. This, you know, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. So there was a feeling of solidarity. And there was a lot of community online because everybody was kind of looking for a connection because we couldn't connect with each other in reality. And then this year for me was almost like all of the emotional trauma that happened in 2020 that I couldn't really sit and process and experience kind of just like caught up to me in 2021. It was like, hey, hi. So it was like that. And then, I mean, there definitely been some great moments this year as well, but it's also been just a very like lonely year for me. Like, I thought 2020 would be the lonely year, but like for me personally, because there was so much camaraderie online, there was so much going on. I was like forcing myself to focus on so many other things just to keep myself sane because of the situation. But this year has been very lonely for me personally, and just like learning how to deal with that and how to navigate that and how to still stay focused on the things that I want to do and not allow that to derail like my goals. So it's been emotionally a lot. And then there's also been a lot of changes in my life and a lot of things going on. So it's like a combination of everything, I think.
Yeah, I would love to say that there's some type of awakening happening for me, but no, I've just been absolutely miserable. And and I can't even think of like a nice way to put it. It has just been a very rough year. And business has gone really slow, whereas last year around this time, business really picked up. So it's very interesting because if you do have a business and you're trying to like do projections and stuff, last year was such an anomaly that like you can't include it in your anything. And I've only been in business for 3 years, so like I don't know what I'm doing. It's like it's fine. It's like whatever. I'm just gonna take this and
It's
just
hard for you to track, probably.
yeah, like I can't track it because last year was such a fluke. So,
well, last year was also a lot because there was a lot going on with the protests, Black Lives Matter. There was a lot of spotlighting on Black creators. And so there was a lot of that going on last year as well, around this time. So it's just, in a weird way, it's like the aftermath of all of that. And it's like a whole lot of nothing.
yeah. And then, plus I've specifically stopped saying that I'm in a reading slump. I will no longer be using that phrase. That will never come out of my mouth ever again. I'm not in a reading slump. I just don't feel like fucking reading.
I feel that.
There are like, it's like I did not start using the phrase reading slump until I found BookTube.
Absolutely. And for our Patreon supporters, we actually did a whole podcast about that term and that phrase and how we felt about it. So if you want to go check that out, it is up. But yeah, the reading slump thing kind of has this way of making you feel guilty for something that's perfectly normal. Like, you know, when we were growing up and we had, you know, sports practice or activities and things like that, and we didn't have time as much to read, we never thought, oh, I'm in a reading slump because I have to go to basketball practice, or I'm in a reading slump because I'm in the school play. It was just like, no, I'm doing other things right now, and I will get back to reading when I have time to read.
Right. And that's the idea that I'm going to literally embody because it was really making me feel guilty. Like, it was like, I really need something to talk about on YouTube, which is why I stopped making YouTube videos for the past 2 months, because it was just like everything became like a very weird obligation because I was just like, I don't even know. I don't want any of this negative feelings towards my hobbies. So I just kind of had to stop and take a moment. Like, for example, I have to totally start the Mariah Carey book tomorrow because I just realized that the live is next week. And
it's this Sunday. It's this Sunday.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wait, is it this Sunday?
Yes, this Sunday is the 20th, which is also Father's Day, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you got to start.
Yeah, I do. Because, like, okay, so I've started reading again, but I've started reading books like that I've been reading books, but just not like the books that I said I was going to read. And it's been working so much better for me. But now my brain is like, girl, you have an assignment, Mariah Carey.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. So for those of y'all who are really just out of the loop and, you know, are just completely just not caught up with what we've got going on, our book of the quarter, which was for May, and we're going to be talking about it on Sunday, is the Mariah Carey book, which I can never remember the name of it, which is really annoying.
The Meaning of Mariah Carey.
Thank you. The Meaning of Mariah. That is just the dumbest name. And I think
it's very Mariah to me. So.
My brain just like rejects it immediately. So I can never remember it.
My brain literally goes, yep, sounds about Mariah.
So that is our book of the quarter. You still have time to get yourself a copy. If it's not at your local library, if you have Audible, then the audiobook is available. Or I don't even know how else you can get it, because if it's not at your library, like I really don't know what else. I mean, I guess you could purchase it, but I feel bad telling people to purchase things that they may not necessarily want to. But try to get your hands on it, because we will be discussing it, and it is our first nonfiction book of the year, I believe.
Yeah.
So we have not done nonfiction books since we did our very first book. Becoming Mariah. Not Mariah Carey. What? Becoming.
So this is very interesting.
Becoming Michelle Obama. That was the very first.
I already picked the book for next quarter, and it's a mystery. So
Ooh,
We're really getting some variety
mystery.
this year.
I know, we're mixing things up. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we got to get into the topic. We've been chatting. We did a little intro. It's nice to see all of our regulars. Hello, everybody. So tonight, I mean, I guess this topic can go a variety of ways. When Brittany and I first brainstormed this, we had been in this like literal cycle for like weeks of talking about 50 Shades of Grey because I rewatch the movies all the time. They're kind of like one of my guilty pleasures. And so I was in the middle of rewatching the movies. I also reread the books from time to time. And I would talk about it with Brittany, and she would just rip it to shreds. And I mean, everything that you said, Brittany, was completely on point. And I'd be like, yup, yup, yup. And so we would just have these interesting conversations about it. And we were like, this would make for a really interesting podcast episode. But we could also broaden it to just talk about the 50 shades of like fucked upness of this world right now.
I mean, there's so much going on. BookTube also been losing their mind, and authors been running their mouth too. It's a lot.
Ooh, okay. I am out of the loop with the BookTube and book world drama because I have like completely X'd out social media from my life for the time being. So what is happening?
I see glimpses of it. Because, you know, I get on Twitter for like 10 minutes and just kind of scroll quickly and see what I see. And this is the thing I'd like to ask the viewers. For anybody who's on Twitter, what is the deal with Storygraph versus Goodreads? Like, I saw people pissed because apparently you can add content warnings on Storygraph, but it's been taken over by people who really don't know what content warnings are. I don't know how to explain.
So is content warnings a less annoying way to say trigger warning? Is that what?
I think so. Like, that was what I was looking up. But then when my timer went off, and I was like, well, won't be finding that out today.
Yeah. Fill us in, y'all, if you are even aware of what's happening, because from my understanding, from you just saying that, I'm going to think that content warning is just a more PC way or a less annoying way to say trigger warning, because there was that whole debate a while back on BookTube about trigger warnings and like to have them, to not have them, what they are, like, and people were going crazy on Twitter because certain books didn't have quote unquote trigger warnings for certain things, and people were pissed. I think there was one author that really pissed people off. I want to say it was Leigh Bardugo. I can't remember who it was. But she wrote a book that was so outside of her norm. I think, isn't that the lady that wrote Ninth House, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So I believe this was back when that book came out, and it was so out of the norm from what she usually writes. And I guess she didn't have any trigger warnings or anything. And so people who have like the advanced reader copies were literally like having a whole fit about it because of the content. So, I mean, vaguely, that's what I remember from back then. That was like a couple years ago when the book first came out. But there have been like scandals about trigger warning scandals. They're not even that deep, but there have been like, you know, people like taking up their pitchforks about stuff like that on Twitter and in the book world for a while when it comes to content warnings. So I don't even know.
It's hard for me not to say it's just book Twitter drama. Like, it's like, I don't want to just completely diminish it and be like, it's book Twitter drama, but it kind of is book Twitter drama because I don't see it anywhere else but book Twitter. Where it's that's the only place I see it. Because like some of the authors that I read, they might not have trigger warnings like in the book, but they have it on their website. So like if you click their website and you go to the book, it'll be like, these are the following trigger warnings. And like one of the authors that I like to read, her trigger warning list is just so long.
Really?
So long. Yeah, it's like 14, 15, 16 different warnings. And I'm just like, yo. And this is the first time I looked them up because I just wanted to see like, will it actually spoil the story for me or not?
Right.
And so far, it
That's
hasn't
very
spoiled anything. Like, number one, I don't remember all the trigger warnings. And
okay.
then number two is just like I could totally see how this particular scene could bother someone.
Mhm.
So therefore, my thing has always been what it will always be on book Twitter. It's like, hey, by doing this, will it hurt anybody? No. Bet. Shut up. Let's just do it.
Right. I see where I really see authors giving trigger warnings or content warnings, I see it a lot in indie publishing and
Yes.
with smaller publishers. When I read ebooks, especially in the new adult genre, where I read a lot of like dark romance, bully romances, which can get kind of dark and very just like twisty. I read a lot of like psychological. I've come up with a new genre. It's called psychological romance because some of this shit, I'm just like,
What?
this is dark.
We will discuss that in a second. You can't just be creating new genres.
Well, maybe somebody else already created it, but I'm calling it psychological romance because it's like the heroes are usually sociopaths or sociopathic to some level or psychopathic to some level, and the heroines also have like some type of sociopathy, or psychopathy, but not as bad as the quote unquote heroes. It's like the anti-hero and the anti-heroine, but not really, but kind of have a romance. So obviously things are going to be dark and things are going to be twisted.
Interesting.
And there's always like some type of mystery, involved, some type of like, murder she wrote shit going on. But anyway, so those authors put hella content warning. They'll be like, look, if you're not into this, if you're not into non-consent, if you're not into consent, like if you're not into this type of fantasy, if you're not into these type of fetishes, if you're not into, like, the list be going on. They'd be like, if you're triggered by this, if you've been in a situation where this happened, if you like, they cover all their bases. They're like, and they'll be like, it'll be in all caps bold in the very beginning of the book, before the title page, before the index, before anything. And it'll be like, please put this book down. Please do not read this. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, continue. That's where I see it the most. But then again, I don't really read a lot of young adult these days. It's not really what I read that much anymore. So maybe it's happening in young adult and I'm just unaware because I'm not really reading it. But I definitely see it a lot in indie and more indie authors and independent published works are in those particular genres are very into the whole content warning thing.
Yo, Miss WOC reader says people want warnings for everything: cheating, sex, characters having autoimmune diseases. Listen, I don't know. Because sometimes like I really want to go back and figure out like when did the phrase trigger warning or content warning come in, and then when was that, when when did they start doing it in books? Because like some stuff, it starts for a reason. So like what changed it? And then do you really need trigger warnings? Like, it's like I can't speak for everybody. Obviously, I would need it for cheating, sex, characters having an autoimmune disease. Because I mean, that's not me, but like maybe somebody else does need that. And maybe it's a very traumatic thing for them because, as many times as I've been cheated on, it should be traumatic for me, but I've grown numb to it. So it's like if I read it in a book, I really would just roll my eyes like another one bites the dust. Like, oh, men are trash. That's really what I would say after reading it.
I'm going to say two things. The first thing I'm going to say is in regards to you being like, when did this start?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to this, but I do remember when I was growing up and I would read certain books that had more serious topics and more like, because back in the day, remember they called it like more adult topics. Oh, this has more adult content.
Well, I mean, because they did it for TV.
Yeah. So I remember what would happen is there wouldn't be a content warning / trigger warning in the beginning of the book like they are now, or even in the blurb or on the author's website or anything like that. And obviously there was no social media back then. But what would happen is you would read the whole book, be, traumatized, whatever, shocked, saddened, whatever emotions you have. And then at the very end, the author would have this authors still have author's notes, but in the author's notes, the author would have this long paragraph, like, if you have ever been a victim of abuse or as you notice, our character went through this in the novel, went through like, had an eating disorder or had this. Here are some resources for you. Like they would have some type of like discourse at the end, basically saying, these were the serious and potentially, I guess, triggering, as we would say today, topics that were covered in my book, and here are some resources for you. Let's talk about this a little bit, and then that would be it. It would be that, and then it would be like their thank yous, and then the book would wrap. Like, so I remember that from being a kid and reading certain books where, and I didn't just stay in like the kids section when I was a kid. I was basically just like free to roam throughout the library. Yeah, and you would just pick up certain things, and you wouldn't even really know what you were getting into, and you would just start reading and things would just start happening, and you're like, wow, okay.
So Miss W.C. Reader just answered that question. I definitely understand not wanting to go into a book with extreme violence, but people put trigger warnings on Storygraph that don't even exist in the books. See, that's a problem.
That was the second thing I was going to say, but I'll let you go.
Okay, how do I put this? Because this is our first time back, so I don't want to be super blunt, but there are certain little twats who don't like a book, so they would make up shit to get you to not read the book. And I'm just going to take a wild guess here and say that POC authors are dealing with a lot of false trigger warnings that have to do with racism and things like that, because fragile people who this book has nothing about feel some type of way that their racism is put in a book. I'm guessing that's a thing that's happened because it happens on every social media platform. Like, if you go on TikTok for 2 seconds, there is a Caucasian person mad at a Black person for saying something about them being a colonizer. So,
oh dear. Oh my goodness, you went there. You were like, how can I put this? And then you just
that was my nice way of putting it. It's just like, I don't agree. Like, I agree with being able to add like trigger warnings if they're not on there. Because remember when we read Echo's book, Black Girl Unlimited? And like there were trigger warnings in the front of that book, but we felt like they weren't enough.
Right.
So like, yeah, for those kind of things, I could see where you would add in probably some more detailed trigger warnings. But they need to be verified. Like, you shouldn't be able to just go in and put it in there. That's like that's basically like Wikipedia. Like, you could just go in and put in whatever kind of information you want, and like no one checks it. It should be checked. Like, you shouldn't be able to just go in and or at least it needs to be verified. It's like, prove it. Where did you see this happen? On page such and such. Like, it should be verified.
I completely.
You what?
I completely agree with you. And that was the second thing I was going to say is like, whose job is it to do this? Is it the job of the publisher? Is it the job of the author? Because when it's left up to the readers on sites like Goodreads or Storygraph or, big influencers, book influencers on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, I feel like it's a little bit like a runaway train.
Yeah.
And like you said, people can just make up stuff and add stuff and just do whatever they want and take creative license or, make trouble for an author because they don't like what they're writing about or whatever the case may be. They don't like the book because somebody got cheated on in the book and had just been cheated on. I don't know. People come up with such crazy reasons to not like books that it makes me wonder if people still have or are still developing in school critical thinking skills. Because I remember when we were in school, that was a big part of our education, was learning to develop critical thinking skills and being able to read a book. This is like basic English. You didn't even have to be in like honors English or advanced English to learn this, but in just your basic general English class, starting from about 5th grade, they were teaching us how to read a fictional work, not even a biography or autobiography, but a fictional book, and be able to critically critique it, critically break it down, see what the themes were, see what the content is, see what it's talking about. What were the heroes? Who were the anti-heroes? What was the rising action, the falling action? What was the point? What was all this stuff? And be able to critically break the book down. So you're not sitting there like, well, my mom did this to me and this happened to the girl in the book, so I don't like this book. That wasn't a good enough reason when you stood and had to do your book report or whatever and write your essay. Like, nah, that's not going to work. So it starts to make me wonder if these type of skills are still being developed, because some TikToks that I've seen, some Twitter posts that I've seen really make me scratch my head, because people's reasonings for not liking books, especially in some of these book reviews, I'm completely baffled. Like, it's one thing to be like, well, personally, I've, emotionally, this hit me this way, so that's probably why I perceive the book this way, and that hampered my enjoyment of it. But to literally just be like, I hated this book because I just felt like I couldn't relate to her, whatever she was going through, and you're just like, what? That's not a good enough reason. I'm sorry.
I mean, again, I completely agree. And I think on top of critical thinking, sometimes having to stop and ask yourself, why do I feel so strongly about this scene, is something difficult for people. Like, not everybody is ready to address certain things that have happened in their life. So maybe reading it has triggered or brought back up those feelings. And maybe they're just not ready to address those feelings. And maybe that could be why, like, there's like plenty of reasons of why you could read a scene and feel a type of way about it.
Right.
But the difference is always being like, there's a bit of self-reflection that should occur when that happens, especially if you react strongly to something. There is a bit of reflection that should happen, but that's not easy for everyone to do. Like, some of us work a little differently and have a different self-awareness where like we're able to stop and check ourselves, but some people can't. And I think that reflects when they talk about how they didn't like the book because the guy grabbed her funny, that kind of thing.
Right.
Like, okay, well, why does that bother you? What happened? That's too much reflection. As Miss WOC Reader said, Book Twitter does not like critical reading. So that would probably ruin their enjoyment.
I guess what frustrates me as a writer is when people do these book reviews, right? And I call them book reviews in quotation marks, because no. And they have influence over other people's thoughts and ideas, and people are tuning in because they trust this person and they want to know what this person thinks. And people rip apart a book and potentially affect the author's visibility or the author's like people's desire to want to read that author or pick up that author's book or next book. And it's affected because the person doing the review is reviewing things and putting things in such a way that has no bearing on the actual written work. Like when they're like, oh, like for example, your example, oh, I didn't like how he grabbed her, but it's like the villain and that's part of their character arc and that's something that they would do, or it makes sense in the context of the story and what's happening, or when racist things happen in books and people are like, this book is racist. And I'm like, okay, no, the character is racist, and that's because they're supposed to be racist. Like, I don't understand what is going on. And so you get this whole narrative of like, this author is racist because their book is racist. And I'm just using that as an example. It could be little anything. It could be ableism. It could be anything. Pick any ism. And it's because a character in the book. What now?
I agree, but I don't agree on that one.
Okay.
Because I feel like, well, I'm just going to say all the isms because I don't want to name all of them.
Okay.
And all the phobics and all that stuff. All of that is included in what I'm about to say. I feel like, and this has been something that we've seen a lot, people taking excerpts from books and things. when someone takes a culture or something for their book and they villainize the entire culture, or they improperly represent the culture and turn it into a hate thing, I have an issue with those type books, because I'm always just like, we're not the villains, you know? Or
Okay.
like when, I guess when an author wants to get quote unquote racy, and this author that has no connection to any of the ick phobics or isms that I'm talking about, they end up writing a scene that's like super racist or super homophobic or super ableist. And it's like, so as a person who does not have these problems, why did you feel like you were the person that could write about it? And did anybody read this to make sure that you weren't taking it to a place? Because sometimes you can get a book and be like, the fuck?
No, that's definitely, I agree with you. I think there's nuances to this, because authors still have to be held accountable for their underlying biases that might show up in their work, right? And that's why you want to make sure that your beta readers are a diverse group. You want to make sure that the people who are behind you, whether you are independently published or you're an indie author or you're published by one of the big five or whatever, you have enough people on your team and on your side that are able to look into the work and kind of suss out, okay, this seems a little biased. This character, like, have you noticed that your villains are always like Black, you know, or like whatever, you know, whatever it may be. Like, I think it's important, because this is definitely, I think you're absolutely right. It definitely is very much more nuanced than what I originally stated. So I think that's definitely important as well. But I also see a lot of people being mad at characters for being the characters, and then they project the character's actions onto the author, and they think that the author is trying to say something when really they were just writing a story and the character was just being true to who they are within the story and serving their purpose in the story. So I think that both things are true, and as an author, you have to be very careful that whatever underlying known or unknown biases that you have don't come across in your work, and you're not harming people. And you have to make sure that you have a team behind you that's going to be able to suss out those things if that's the case. It's very touchy, because I feel like certain books that I've, you know, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years, certain books do not stand the test of time.
Absolutely not.
You're reading them and you're like, yo.
I mean,
like,
that's also with shows and stuff too. Like, it's some shows I've gone back and watched and I was like, oh.
Because weren't you and I, we were talking about that book, Indian in the Cupboard, from when we were kids.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
we were.
Oh my God. Like, you know,
a couple of books that were like really big when we were younger that I've gone back to read, and I was like, well, Jesus, this ain't it. Like, what?
Like, ooh, dear God. Wow. Okay, we've come a long way.
Right. Like, sometimes I forgot what book I was reading. But it was a white woman in the book that said something like, I just never expected her to be so eloquent with her words. And I was like, yo. I was like, this is what I was like, no, we're not writing whole ass microaggressions.
It just stops you in your tracks. It kind of remember I told you about that romance novel that I was reading, about that old school romance novelist that I read when I was a teen.
Oh, yes.
And she was right. It was like historical romance of characters. I want to say they were like in the 1300s or 14. I don't know, like old school Russia, like back in the day. And the male protagonist described something negative as being niggardly. And I was shook.
Is that even a word?
I could not get that shit out of my mind. I had to stop reading the book altogether. I needed like 24 hours to process. I was like,
that's what I'm talking about. Not right there. Like, listen, no. Like, one, Aaron, I do want to read yours where you said that's why I'm okay with white authors not having POCs in their book, because not everybody can write us.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I agree with Miss WSC Reader. I don't look to their books for representation either. Facts on facts. on facts because this is exactly what happens. I recently read a book and it had a Black character in it, and I'm sure the author has never met a Black person. This is usually what I'm talking about. It's like, I don't mind, like, or rather, how do I put it? I read books written by Black authors with Black characters in it differently than I do when I know it's a white author. And whether that's subconsciously or not, I still, because in a way it's like, yes, I can't deal with, like, if I'm reading it and I know it's a white author, there are certain things that's going to be like, wait, what? What?
Right.
Whereas if a Black person wrote it, I'm like, yeah, cool. So it's like, I always feel like with these kind of conversations, like, it's like, yes, I'm aware that authors and stuff can write whatever they want, but there is a level of side eye that I'm going to give you if you write about stuff that's not yours.
I absolutely agree. And I think that for authors, I mean, there's this, I'm still looking at that comment like, oh my goodness.
I did not know that.
Why? But like, why is that the word?
Why is that a real word?
I have so many questions, but we'll address that in a second.
After the live, like, I'm about to go on a word hunt. Like, when did this word first start getting used? I'm about to go look it all up. So interesting.
But I completely agree with you because as a writer myself, I feel like you have a personal responsibility in a huge way. And yes, you have an imagination. And yes, you know, like I'm the kind of writer where I am a very big proponent of like, well, my characters just come to me and that I just write, but they come from somewhere and they come from your imagination, and your imagination is made up of who you are, your experiences, how you view the world, what you believe in, your ideals, your philosophies, like your morals, your values. So I feel like people try to, you know, get away with it in a way by being like, oh, well, it just came from my imagination and da 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 da. But your imagination is you.
Yeah, so your imagination is racist.
Okay, like I'm sorry. But you know, as a writer, you have a huge responsibility. And there's this, I remember a writing class I took, the professor was like, write what you know, like, please. Like it even goes for fantasy. Like, okay, yeah, you can make up a lot of stuff. You can make up a whole world. It's called world building. You can make up a whole language. That's great. Use your creativity.
But if you're inspired by something, you better make sure you know what you're talking about, because the people in the story, they are going to recognize
themselves,
their culture and their story in your story.
Yes.
So that's a responsibility thing that I really think there needs to be a lot more focus on that. Like,
absolutely. So it is frustrating when you're reading something and an author is being irresponsible with the representation of a certain group. And even if you're not a part of that group, but you're just aware of the fallacies, how much worse must it be for that group to read it and be like, wow, yeah, no, this is not right. And I mean, I'm glad on one hand that we've come to a place where we have a voice now. Yes, it's social media, but we have a voice now to speak out against these type of things and hold authors accountable. I think that that's one of the greatest things that we have about places like Book Twitter and TikTok and Bookstagram and things of that nature, is to hold authors accountable. But yeah, I don't understand why there is this huge push for white authors or non-Black authors to incorporate Black characters into their books when Black authors are writing Black characters beautifully and depicting our stories and making sure that our voices are being heard. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well,
Leanne, no.
You bring up a very good point. And I'm going to segue this into another comment. So I'm going to read it for those who are not watching this. Leanne says, it's annoying when people project characters' actions, words onto AOC. Meanwhile, with white authors, it's always, they didn't mean it. It's the character, not the author. Separate the work from the author. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Bookish Realm definitely posted a video a week or two ago talking about, can you actually separate the character from the author? So I'm not actually going to get into that. I recommend you just go check out her video. She did all the work, so go watch that. But I'm going to tie this into this second one because Miss WOC Reader says, The other discourse on Twitter that bugged me was the some of you need to stop being angry that the diverse books getting the most attention are about surviving white spaces. Complaint by authors.
Mm. When it comes to that particular comment, I don't understand why people don't allow people to write about their lived experience, whether that be through fiction, nonfiction, a song, a play, whatever. It's like people get triggered, oh, there's that word, so badly by seeing the truth. Because the way I look at it is Black authors are going to continue to write stories about surviving white spaces until they feel like that has been completely depicted and told. Why? Because we haven't had this before on a large scale. Like, we haven't been able to talk about surviving white spaces on the scale that we're actually getting access to right now. So why can't people just allow it to happen and allow these authors to tell their stories, like, until we are satiated with that, until the market is satiated and we're like, okay, we've gotten enough of these stories, let's move on to the next type of story that we want to tell. That's kind of how it works. And I just don't understand why people get so upset about things like that.
See, you spoke about it from more of an author standpoint. I can understand this. So one, I really hate when people feel the need to tell people to stop being offended. It's like, okay, if a whole group of people feel this way, and as a Black person, I am one of those people that actually gets kind of angry because I personally, I don't use the phrase Black trauma anymore after watching Chloe's live about Black trauma. Like, I don't use that phrase anymore. And my reasoning is because, like, everything that we do is not always trauma, but there are moments in our lives that can be traumatic.
Right.
So sometimes I don't want to read about it. Sometimes it hits too close to home. And so I was finding myself getting angry because the books that were being the top #1 books are always about a young girl or a young boy who's like the only Black person in the space, and he's treated like an outcast, and there's like the popular white people who treat him like crap, and then it turns out that they end up like saving the world. That is a very large amount of the Black books that have been on the #1 bestseller list in the past couple years.
Yeah.
And some of these books I have actually really enjoyed. Like, again, I still like them, but I understand why people might get a little upset, because the stories where we're not trying to survive white spaces, the stories where we're just existing in our own spaces and bringing, dealing with regular stuff that's not associated with our race, those are not the books that get praised. Those are not the books that get accolades. Like, those are the books that we know about, but as you can see, they don't get pushed as much by publishers and stuff like that. But the books that get pushed by bigger booktubers are always the ones that are such great stories, and you guys should totally read them, and they're so inspiring and that kind of thing. So when it's like, yes, I have a space for me where I'm angry about that. Because if you notice, the ones where it's just us existing, they can't relate. But the one where it's us thriving and making it through their space, then all of a sudden it's a great book to read. So that will always create anger for me. So if somebody's trying to tell me I shouldn't be angry without even asking me why I'm angry, they can kiss my ass, honestly. Like, because I have a right to like reading those books and be pissed off at the people telling me how to feel about those books. Because I'm like, no, because like not everything we do is surviving white spaces.
I completely agree. And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to having variety. And it comes down to having more Black content creators who have the level of visibility and influence as these white content creators who have the power to push certain narratives in certain books. And yes, the publishing company does promote these books over other books, but if we had bigger Black content creators, we have a few, but if we had more in the space and they were able to push the other stories, and if we had more of those stories being published, then we would have more variety and people can pick and choose. It's kind of like how in other areas of publishing, with white books, for example, they have so many different options. They have so many different varieties. We're just needing to get to that point. And I do have hope that we're going to get there. I just think it's going to take time, and it probably will take a lot longer than you and I would like. But just coming from like a publishing standpoint, I think that they like to do what's trendy and what's popular. And when certain books take off and are still on the bestseller list 3, 4, 5 years later, and they are depicting certain Black traumatic events, then copycat books are going to come out. They're going to keep pushing and riding that train. And I agree with what you said. Well, hold on. Let me see. Somebody said it in the chat. Aaron says, because white people love Black struggle books, it makes them feel, I hate this word, woke. And I agree, because white people are also the people who have power in publishing, power in marketing. They're the ones that have the power. So in these markets, in general, but in these markets.
I think that publishing gave white people the strongest voice, despite us being here and being very vocal and saying that we should be there. They're just choosing to not hear us.
Well, absolutely. And I think that, for example, when I can't say all publishers, but some publishers are making a bigger effort to have more Black people in the room in certain positions, as part of the marketing teams, as more Black editors, as part of the development teams. I'm just like, finally, thank fucking God, because maybe we can get more diverse stories told that tell more than just our trauma, that can also express our joy, that can also express us doing amazing, fantastical things that have nothing to do with surviving white spaces or surviving white oppression or any type of oppression, maybe. So I have hope. I'm optimistic.
You're very optimistic. I am not.
I am. Because I think
I'm going to just be honest, because it's okay. I need to preface this. So for those of you who are new, I am an engineer. I am the only Black person, and I am the only female in my section. Actually, no, I'm the only Black person in my whole office, and I'm the only female in my section. There's one other female. I'm not optimistic because I'm constantly fighting for my space every day that I go to work. And I've been here for 9 years. And you know why things changed? They were afraid of getting sued, not that they actually wanted to change. So because there's no type of opposition or anything like that in the publishing world, there's not going to be this overall, I don't believe there's going to be this overall understanding that we exist like everyone else. Because to acknowledge that we exist like everyone else is to acknowledge that the real problem is the racism we face and not just us being Black. Because once you acknowledge that it's not us doing it. It's people doing it to us, specifically people of other races doing it to us. And by calling out them, we'd be calling out the majority, and that would hurt them, because we already know what happens whenever you do that. They go from allies to enemies real quick. The performative allies forget who they are or who they thought they were pretending to be and show their whole ass. And so I don't think, as far as publishing goes, I don't think we're ever going to see that. I think like everything else we do, I think we need to break away from these mainstream publishing companies.
And that, I think, is a great solution, actually.
Yeah, like the only way we get things done is doing it ourselves. And once they see that we're doing it without them, then all of a sudden everybody wants to do it.
That's definitely true. And I mean, there are Black publishers that are doing this already. It's just that they don't get the visibility and the support that they need. And so it's about getting the word out, and it's about getting more Black readers to support Black publishers or Black independently published authors that are trying to do this and have been doing it for so long.
The blogs really be having the information. And Chloe does literary research like nobody I've ever encountered. Like, you want to know some stuff, some new books or like some short stories written, listen, go look at Chloe's content.
Mm.
Chloe be like shouting out books I didn't even know was a thing. I just see a cover and I'm like, I want it. Never even heard about this book my whole life. I just see this black steampunk woman on the cover and I'm like, I
need
have
that book.
always wanted black steampunk. Give here, please, now. You know? So
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
like I'm really at a place. Yeah, Aaron, definitely FUBU. Definitely.
Yes.
Because I'm like, remember when you started this book club and our long ass name was a seat at the table?
Oh yeah.
And the reason that we named it that was because we were tired of trying to wait to fit into their space and just wanted to create our own space.
Absolutely.
It's the same principle that I feel about when it comes to books. It's like there are some good books out there, and I have been reading some really good freaking books. And they were not the ones pushed by publishers or whatever. They're ones that I've read about in blogs and ones that I've read about from other Black content creators who take the time and the effort to find books that aren't always talked about.
But the problem is, and I mean, I'm just going to say it, we don't support each other.
Ooh, shoot.
I mean, this all sounds good and well.
It does.
But we are more prone to compete with one another. We are more prone to pull each other down. We are more prone to argue with each other in front of the world, on Twitter, on Instagram.
Well, you know why, right?
Making videos, response videos about each other, dragging each other, saying this, saying that. We are more prone to doing that, unfortunately, than coming together as a huge force and being like, we're going to push this person to the top.
I mean, that's historical.
Yeah.
That's something we've been battling for decades.
Yeah.
The pick me mentality is something that's actually just deeply ingrained in us. And until we recognize it, then you have to I actively support people because I have to remind myself to do it. And that's real because honestly, otherwise I wouldn't watch nothing because I'm like, nah, like I know that there are people out here doing work. And so I'm going to go read what they wrote. I'm going to go listen to them talk about a book. I'm going to go make sure I like their photos on Instagram and share them. Absolutely. But you're right. There is,
like to me, it's
got
problematic.
A lot of issues.
To me, it's problematic that as a Black content creator, you will get more views off of negativity. You will get more views off of you, quote unquote, beefing with someone, going back and forth with somebody, making a controversial video, dragging someone. Well, that you would even need to make that type of content is troubling. But you will get more views and more likes and more quote unquote support, which is not really real support. People are just coming to watch the circus and watch the show from that type of content, that type of behavior than you will ever get supporting a Black indie publisher, Black authors, Black books that don't get visibility.
Also facts, but because I've been watching and Jerry, obviously, shout out to Onyx Pages.
Right.
I see a lot of the stuff that she does behind the scenes. So a lot of you guys don't know this, but like the way that she is authentically on her mission.
Mm-hmm.
And she's at like what, 10K or something? And like,
yes,
that's a pretty big number for us. And so I'm always just like, listen, as a community, I understand that we have a lot to get through. I understand as a community that we, as a community, hurt each other a lot. But the best thing that we can do individually is start trying to support each other. I'm not saying you got to love everybody. I'm not saying you got to be cool with everybody. Because listen, I don't like a couple people straight up and never will. But you don't see me on Twitter talking about them.
Keep that to yourself.
Yeah, like it's like I uplift people. I try. So it's one of those things where it's like at some point we as a people have got to do better. But because I can't control everybody, I'm going to just work on myself. And myself is if I'm beefing with somebody, the whole world is not going to know. I will not be on Twitter. I will not be entertainment. I will not be on BookTea. I will not be on anybody's drama page. I will not be on any of it. I will keep that shit to myself and proceed to uplift other people because like, it should not be this hard. Also, welcome, Amber. Welcome to our live. Hope you're enjoying it.
Welcome. But
But
yeah, it's frustrating. And like, we've even had some experience with that ourselves on our channel and the things that we're doing
that was
a
rough.
couple months ago. That was such, okay, so I'm just going to talk about that a little bit, but
feel free.
That was so disappointing for me. That was such a huge blow. And that definitely contributed to me like taking a step back and being like, I need to take a step back because this is now affecting my mental health and that's not okay. And it wasn't even necessarily like what happened, but it was the spirit in which it happened. The negativity in that surrounded it. And that was hugely disappointing, like so disappointing, and made me really disappointed in the community because I was just like, this is crazy.
Holy craps. I did not realize that.
Good for her.
I did not know she's already at, shoot, she might break the 100 barrier.
I think that's awesome, actually. I'm really happy for her.
Yeah.
But you know, it's frustrating when I feel like you're trying to create a space and you're trying to do something positive. And I'm all for critiques. I'm all for, and you can tell when like people are holding you accountable and critiquing you out of a place of love and concern. And when people are doing it out of a, yeah, absolutely. And when people are doing it out of a place of like, yes, I want to watch the drama. Like, I'm so glad this is happening. Like, this is great. And they're coming with their popcorn and stuff. And you're just like, wow, this is crazy. And it'll be your own people.
And unfortunately,
that's the disappointing part. You're just like, this is crazy.
I mean, like I said, when all of that went down, I wasn't ready for the anger because, like I said, I'd gone to sleep and woke up. But one thing that I definitely learned from that situation is that, like, there are people that want community. Like, if I can take anything positive, there are some people who want community. There are some people that watch us. They were there and they were fully supportive while giving us the critiques that we needed.
Right.
And then in true fashion, there was a lot of people we ain't never seen again. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm cool with that because the part that mattered is the part that I took to learn for, like, when we do other events or things like that. Like, I learned enough from the people who cared to teach. And not even teach, care to call us out on what we failed at, because we're humans and we've never been perfect. As much as I want to be, I'm not.
Right.
So at first it really fucked with me too. Not even gonna lie. I was shook. I was really mad. Like, I wanted to just go off, but I didn't, because it was like, girl, you messed up. Except take this lashing, because you're gonna have to take this lashing. Like, nobody wants to be called out. Nobody wants to do that. But at the same time, I'm also at a place in my life where I appreciate being called out on my shit.
I completely agree with you. And it wasn't even the calling out that was upsetting to me. It was the gross amount of negative energy, and negative energy in an evil way, in a demonic way, in a we want to see you fail type of way. We've never been here before. We don't even know who you are. We have done no research on you, but we are going to drag you and we are going to be here for your downfall. And we are going to point out all these things and then we are going to go. It was just like, wow.
Because this, for people who don't know, we've been here for 3 years. We didn't just pop up last year when it was cool to make book clubs. If you want to look us up, we were originally called a Seat at the Table Book Club. We've been here this whole time. And it was just like,
the part that had me shook. It wasn't even like, oh, you messed up. Like, that's a part of life. Like, as we grow, as we continue, I knew we were bound to have some sort of, failing on our side, because that's just life.
We have been praying about it and like really trying to grow. I should have known that, because we were so hyped about it, that God was going to be like, so bet, here's that test I was talking about.
Right.
Because y'all weren't specific anyway.
And also, just whenever you have panels, whenever you involve other people with other views, there's always going to be some spiciness. There's always going to be some things, and you just have to learn how to handle it. And that's what we learned. And I'm grateful for that. But that wasn't what was so like disheartening for me.
The part didn't bother me. It was the people who don't know me trying to drag me, that I was just like, I was like, I know y'all think I'm nice, but I am crazy. come at me directly. And if it wasn't, literally, if my name wasn't attached to the book club, I probably would have just gone ape shit.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
at the end of the day, like, Troy and Oshley are also my friends, which makes me very protective. But because we were a book club and because we're like so adamant about growing as a book club, we were like, listen, so let's take the actual critiques. Let's try to ignore the comments that people who don't know us trying to talk about us like they know us. Let's ignore those and let's focus on the actual problems that are being stated. Because otherwise, y'all would have got a whole different Brittany. And that was a learning, that was a different level of learning for me, okay? Because I had to call my mama to calm me down because I was like, I don't understand this. Like, we're trying to create a community. We're trying to do stuff for each other. We're trying to be a platform that can be used. And like the first time we do it and we make some mistakes and we just get dragged. And it was just like, God damn it. Oh, also, Amber, our third member is Troy, but she's currently on a hiatus right now. So she may be back later on. But right now she is doing a massive, much needed hiatus.
Yes. But yeah, it was wild. Like for me, I guess I could sum it all up by saying it be your own people. It be your own people. Like I was like,
yeah, I think it's a progress thing that we're just gonna have to keep working on because like how do I put this? I want even the people that just came to talk cash money shit, dip and leave. I want those people to come back. I want those people to experience Black prose as we are, because we do have good conversations. We do talk about a lot of different things. And like our community is very active when we do talk about these things. And there's conversations, there's dialogue. And I just feel like there are not very many places in the booktube world that are doing this and having the main focus be Black women.
Right.
It's just not there.
It's not.
So it's like, in a way, like, yeah, I'm glad they're gone because they were negative, but I do wish that they stayed. Because it's not always about the apology, is what you do after the apology that matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But so it's just like, we're still here. Like we had to take a step back and check ourselves because we did take things personally, but we're also human. So again, it was a learning curve of curves. I was just like, I can't explain it any better than that. I learned some things about myself in that moment because it was like, well, Britt, like, remember how y'all was praying because y'all wanted growth? Y'all wanted to hit 1K. Y'all wanted to do this, that, and the third. Well, how do you expect to get there without some moments?
I know that's right.
And we sure didn't think about that or talk about that. But you know what hit us right in the face? One of those moments.
I was going to say those moments. So true. But yeah, so it feels good to talk about it though now, like months later, and just kind of
we've had plenty of time to completely process it and all that stuff. We did get discouraged. Not even gonna front with y'all. We did get discouraged. But the more we talked about it amongst ourselves, the more we realized, like, gotta keep going.
Oh yeah, you gotta keep going. Like, it definitely was discouraging, but we're still here. We're going to continue to push forward and, you know, continue to do what we always do. And we took a break when we needed to, and we're back. And we going to keep it moving.
Yeah. What was the other thing about it? I'm trying to think. What was my other number one lesson? Oh, because I remember I was talking to somebody and they were like, well, are you going to do another Black Book Summit? And I was like, yeah, but not during Black History Month.
Never again.
Never again. Listen, we as Black people do so much in those 28 days that we are given to, what is it called? we do so much in Black History Month. Like the level of fatigue that hits after Black History Month as a content creator or as somebody that does events and stuff for Black History is too much.
We were so drained.
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm going to enjoy Black History Month next year. Like, I'm going to participate in other people's Black History Month, but no. I went to sleep after every panel last month. That month,
it was a lot.
I was exhausted because if I wasn't on the screen, I was running everything behind the scenes. Like, I made all the graphic. I did a lot. I was done. So yeah, there's going to be another Black Book Summit. It's just we got to figure out what month is going to work for us because there's so many events going on that like it's hard to pick like the right time to do it. And I just personally don't want to do Black History Month again. It was just too freaking much. It was too much. Like we were doing so many other things, participating in so many things that it was hard to give anymore. I was done. I was like, I can't even make videos. I'm tired. I'm done. So
yeah, we might switch it up and actually do it maybe in the fall.
Yeah, that might be. I think it might be like that sounds like a better idea. Oh my gosh. Listen, guys. So I'm gonna just be honest with you guys. We wanted to do Naked this year.
Why did I know that this is coming?
Because I know that this question is gonna come up. We wanted to do Naked this year, right?
We wanted
and had every intention of doing Naked this year. But there are some things that have happened that have made it difficult to do what we want to do for Naked. And for those who are new, Naked is our Black romance readathon that we started last year based off of a typo from one of our viewers. And it turned into the Naked readathon. Well, one, you guys requested that it be a month. And two, we want to include other people, specifically Black romance authors, specifically indie Black romance authors.
I'm dead.
Troy. So we wanted to do all of this stuff, but at the moment we are not quite financially able to do what we want to do because to get authors and stuff, it does require some financial compensation.
Right.
So because of that, we will not be able to do what we wanted to do. So I'm going to ask this question because I know somebody in the comments is going to be like, no! Would you guys be okay if we just do prompts like we did last year? And we just read, we just do a romance week this year. It's not going to be big. It's not going to be extravagant. It's going to be very basic because we can't do what we originally planned. It's just not, that's real talk, not financially there yet.
No.
So I'm going to let you guys hear this part and then see what comes up in the comments.
Yeah, just let us know because we obviously love Black romance. We still want to support Black romance authors and shout them out and have all the good times with their books. But we just don't have the finances to do it up as much as we would want to for this year. So if we do it, it's going to be very bare bones, very, very like throwback-a-thon year one.
Yes.
So just let us know. Y'all know we love our Black romance. We know you love Black romance. So we always are down for supporting Black romance authors and having them seen and have more visibility. So just let us know what you want to do. It's literally just going to be like 4 prompts. It's a week, right? So like 4 prompts.
So we're going to have 4 reading prompts. And then if I could think of any interesting IG prompts, then we're going to do that. But yeah.
And then I'm going to force Brittany to buddy read a book with me.
Well, it seems to be a
y'all hear that?
Because last year I read a book with y'all. So obviously I will read another, if we want to do a group read, I will read another group read with you. I actually enjoyed the book last year. Remember? I went and asked Christina C. Jones if I could get some books specifically about the roses. Like, I don't want to know what they're doing after the roses. I want to know what they were doing as roses, but I ain't got that yet. It's fine. It's fine.
I already have a book in mind. You're going to be mad.
Yeah. Oh, God. See, listen, I liked last year's book. Oh, also, new people, I am not a romance reader. It's like a running joke in our group that, like, Oshley and Troy, great romance readers, love talking about it, love doing it. I'm always the person on the sidelines like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. It seems like everybody is totally down with a very basic Black romance love affair, which I'm always down for because, you know, Black love.
And we'll probably do it in August because I really don't want to interfere with the Fuckathon.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I believe that's in July this year.
And Noria has been working Chronicles of Noria have been working really, really, really hard on the Fuckathon.
So I don't want to interfere with it. I want everybody to, nice. I want everybody to be able to participate in the Fuckathon freely and give no fucks and then reconvene for Naked.
Yeah. Also, yes, Miss W.
We owe y'all one, so definitely.
Like we know we owe y'all one. It's just we took a break. That's all. Like, because remember, we still have our colorism panel that we need to do because we canceled our colorism panel because of all the crap that happened. Like the week that we planned to have our colorism conversation, there was a lot of Black violence that happened, and so we took a break. And we, for those who are wondering, we're still looking for people who want to come in to our podcast and talk about their experiences with colorism, because that was the topic that we wanted to address first. But yeah, no, there is we are going to do another romance panel. I do want to include Instagrammers, bloggers on this one, just to give it a different variety. But yeah, we don't know when we're going to do it because that, again, it requires planning and, you know, fixing people's schedules to be able to participate and all that.
Just think fall for colorism, think fall for the romance panel. And by fall, I mean October, November months, just to give us a little bit of a window to plan it properly and make sure that we get the right people on for the romance panel and the right people on for the colorism panel, and they're properly prepped and they have time and all that good stuff. And we're able to vet people. So October,
we're going to provide the questions and stuff ahead of time and like decide on what the actual topic of the romance panel is, not leave it broad. So, you know, we do need it's stuff like we said, we learned from our previous panels. So we gotta make sure we pick the right people to fit the topic of the panel.
And think August for Naked. Some week in August, it's to be announced. And then just remember May, obviously we're in June, not May. This Sunday, we're talking about the meaning.
The meaning of Mariah Carey.
I know. It sucks so bad.
For some reason, it's like your brain refuses to accept that as the title of the book.
I'm just like, who greenlit that? But anyways, yep.
Mariah.
Sunday we'll be talking about the meaning.
You're so adverse to saying it. This Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be back here on Black Prose to discuss our book pick, which is The Meaning of Mariah Carey. The audiobook is exclusive to Audible. So if you have Audible, you can get the audiobook. Or like the rest of us, you just have to get it from somewhere else, like the library or whatever. But it is The Meaning. Miss WOC Reader said it should have been titled Memoirs of an Imperfect Angel.
It really should have.
That sounds actually a lot better. And it still sounds very Mariah.
Exactly. Okay. So now that we've done our announcements, now that we've given y'all a projection for the rest of this year, we're going to give y'all what you came for these last 15 minutes, 50 Shades of Grey. Let's go.
Hold on. Let me get comfortable. So again, we have some new people here. So
Yes.
let me just preface this. So we talk a lot of shit about certain books,
A lot.
especially really popular, problematic books. I drag people for less, but
Yes.
this particular book series, I'm going to drag for filth. So if you like 50 Shades of Grey, the series, and you do not like when people talk about
I
it,
will just segue by saying,
is your moment to leave, because I'm going to drag this Wattpad shit to hell.
and I would just like to say that I actually am, I don't know if I would call myself a fan. What is that thing when you like love to hate something? I don't know.
I don't know.
I guess
Love to hate it.
I'm that. Like I loved, I don't know if I hate read it though, because I genuinely enjoy it sometimes, but then I'm also cringing. I don't know, but that's me.
Hey,
Oh my gosh. So many people just left this live. I am dead.
The numbers just dropped, man.
Hey, Erica. You tuned in at the craziest point.
Listen, I decided that I was going to start giving that warning to people because not everybody is used to it. But here's my question for people who like 50 Shades.
I don't think anyone here does.
I don't think anybody does, so I get to drag it freely. How in the world is this book so popular when it is about a young man who was constantly raped by his mom's best friend, and now he only wants to hook up and brutalize women who look like his actual birth mom?
Oh! Damn, you just went there. You like just dove into the deep end like no life preserver.
I gave the warning.
Whoo! Okay, so Brittany and I were talking about this, and we were just like, how wild is it? Oh my God, the comments are sending me. How wild is it that the same people that are obsessed with 50 Shades of Grey, like genuinely obsessed, not like me where it's like hate watching or cringing or whatever, but genuinely like love it and are like, this is it, are the same people who love to point out misogyny in like love scenes where there's like a little bit of aggression or like consensual aggression, mind you.
Yeah, because these are the things nothing about consensual.
I mean, make it make sense. It's like you are loving this book series, but then you turn around and want to say, oh my goodness, he like grabbed her and threw her onto the bed. This is not okay. I'm just like, huh? Like but in other books, not in 50
very same breath, they're fiending over this quote unquote hot guy who stalks this chick.
Straight up stalking.
Oh also, yeah, Leanne, that's his backstory. Like he was groomed and raped by his mom, by his adoptive mom's best friend.
From age 15, right?
From age 15 to in his 20s. And the women that he actually likes to have sex with, they look like his mother. He's got all types of mental health issues and things that if he were a woman, they'd be saying, get therapy. No one would be glorifying it. Everybody would be talking about how tragic of a situation it was. Everybody would be speaking out about women's rights and how rape is not okay. But because he's supposed to be a rich white guy, it's totally fine to completely ignore his trauma because he spanks women.
And let's not talk about the pretty privilege, because if he wasn't, like you said, rich, white, extremely good looking as he's described in the books, none of this would be okay.
Yeah. It's because he's described as this rich, beautiful man. And this rich, beautiful man has been raped for years.
Oh, it's so disturbing. And you know what? Brittany and I discussed this, is what's even worse, if anything could be even worse than this being his backstory, is the way that it's handled when it's finally revealed that he was groomed by his mom's best friend. The way that it's just cavalierly like, oh my goodness, that is so bad. We will never speak to her again. Like, it's just not handled with the level of severity and like attention that something like this needs, which again falls into that double standard of when men are the ones that are being groomed, young boys are the ones being groomed and taken advantage of and assaulted and being molested. There isn't the same type of outrage when it's an
Right.
older woman and a young boy as it is when it's a young girl and an older man. There's just not that same level of attention. Even in the writing, like it's all very just, I think the most outraged person in the novel was Anastasia. She just like never got over it, which is his love interest. And even his mom, his adoptive mother, was not even as outraged as I feel like she should have been.
That's why I said this book is trash. I mean, granted, she stole it from Wattpad, and it is a fanfic of Twilight, which
very obvious. Very obvious.
That's a whole other issue.
I enjoyed the movie as a guilty pleasure. I never
watched the second and third movie. Like, I laughed so hard in the first movie that I got kicked out the theater.
I enjoy them as a guilty pleasure because the films are such like a reproduction of Twilight. It's ridiculous. Like, it's crazy. Like, whenever I watch the movies, all I see is like Edward Cullen like sparkling in the woods. Like, it's just so obvious. Like, it's so connected that I'm just like, this is what it's just, you know, he has a red room and he like whips her and there's some like, you know, sexy scenes or whatever. That's,
oh my gosh,
really the only difference.
Since we stepped onto the sex scenes, first of all,
those scenes made me uncomfortable.
Because they are uncomfortable, because that's not how BDSM works in the first place.
Those scenes made me so uncomfortable.
You do not take a virgin and then strap her up to machines and shit and think that it's totally fine. Where's the conversation? Where's the cuddling afterward? Where's the, like, he's like the worst dom I've ever read in a book, and people are swooning over him. I'm like, he doesn't even know nurturing things because he's never been nurtured.
Well, that's the interesting thing about the books, is that in the book series, the whole point is that he sucks at BDSM. Like, he's not good at it.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like he over here talking about being a dom and a sub, and I was like, it's very clear the person that wrote this has no idea what a dom and a sub relationship is actually like.
And also, the whole thing is Anastasia doesn't want to do it. Like, that's the whole thing in the book.
Oh yeah,
like,
because, you know, he just took her virginity really without even consulting her, but that's a whole other thing. It's so many problems in this fucking book that I just can't understand how it's so popular, because again, there's so much trauma. It should have had, like, this is something book Twitter should have flipped the fuck out over. But no, they didn't, because it was a hot, rich white guy who spanked girls.
And took them up in his helicopter and his beautiful penthouse, and like
after
all these
stalking them in the city where they live and going to their job and picking them up at bars and all. Screw that. He's hot and rich. What? I was like, this is so bad.
Oh my goodness. The scene where she lost her virginity is so disturbing, because he literally was just like, we're going to take care of that right now. Let's go. And she's just like, oh, okay. We're going. Yes, we're going.
Yeah, I was like,
what's happening right now?
Everybody that I've, like, anybody who's lost their virginity, do you remember somebody just grabbing your hand and being like, I'm going to take it? were you so calmly okay with that? Was that the moment for you? Like, I have never met somebody that was like, yeah, like, I went to his house. He said basically that he wanted me to be a sub. He realized I was a virgin and he took my virginity. What?
There are a few moments in the book that makes you like kind of burst the bubble a little bit, because the whole thing that makes it a little bit more problematic is this whole idea that Anna is so intensely sexually attracted to Christian that it just like, it's like a filter, right? It acts as a filter over all of his actions. Like, oh, his problematic, disturbing, stalkerish, overly aggressive, borderline non-consensual actions are okay because I'm really, 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 really attracted to him. So that's totally fine that we don't have these discussions and we don't have these boundaries, which is disturbing. But the bubble burst moment is when her roommate and best friend, Kate, accidentally finds the contract that he went over with her in her coat, like accidentally finds it and is like horrified and completely just like shook and is like, Anna, what the fuck? And then she's just like, oh, don't worry about it. That was in the past. We've moved on past that. We're good now. And her best friend is like, do I need to call the police? Like, is everything okay?
I just want you guys to know that if like a novelist, if this was your introduction to BDSM, I'm very glad that you did your own research, and that you got a part of an actual community, because there's so many problems of how BDSM is represented in these books and that those movies, that like I was really like, people really out here thinking that all they need is a contract.
Right. Right. Oh gosh.
People really out here thinking all they need is a sex contract and they're good. Like what?
So much more goes into it.
Like, do you think that you're like a man? You think that you're going to be able to let somebody degrade you and stuff, and all you need to do is sign your name on a dotted line, and you think you're going to be okay after that?
Whew. The delusion.
Especially depending on what type of BDSM you're actually into. Like, right. No. So if this was your introduction, please do research. Do not use this book as a reference. It is terrible on all counts.
The BDSM community did come out and like spoke out against the book, and we're very upset.
It's terrible.
So there is that.
Terrible. It was just like, I don't. I was dying. I was like, there is problems from the very beginning of this man's conversation. Oh, and let's not forget how like he completely abandoned one of his subs and she went crazy.
Oh, Layla. Oh yes, poor Layla. Poor troubled Layla.
She was stalking her and all this stuff. I was like, why is it that everybody that's involved in Christian's life, like, why are all of them like trying to get revenge on him?
I will say this. What's very interesting is, so the author rewrote the first 2 books, but she rewrote them from Christian's perspective, which FYI, if you ever care, those books are like 1,000% way more interesting than the original.
Yeah, because books. He's a whole ass I need therapy person.
But here's the thing. Here's the crazy thing. Christian is in therapy, and his therapist is actually a character in the novel. But the crazy thing about the other books that she wrote from Christian's perspective is there are so many moments where like certain extremely dark, traumatic things from Christian's past pop up in his memory, and he just continually suppresses them and they're never addressed. So it's a little frustrating reading it because you want the author to go into it a little bit more, because she'll like give you a little taste test and Christian will like flash back to something really horrific and dark, and then he'll just like suppress it and be like, no, Anastasia must go find Anastasia and have sex with her. And I'm just like, no, I need to know more. Can we go back to that?
Listen, one, the actual author of this series is a terrible author.
Oh.
2, I'll be damned if I didn't read Edward's creepy perspective. I'm definitely not reading Christian.
It's very interesting. I will say that. But I do think that the writing is a little frustrating because, like I said, she gives these little tidbits and hints into his past that actually sound very, very interesting and intriguing. But she never goes into it. And instead, the overlying suppression is about his love for Anna and his obsession with Anna. And it's like, that's not the interesting part of the story. The interesting part of the story.
Do you love Anna for Anna, or do you love Anna because she looks like your mom?
Oh, geez.
Exactly. Exactly.
And also, why wasn't she repulsed when she found that picture of his mother in his room and realized that she looked like his mom, and so did Layla?
Admitted it to her. I was like, so that didn't stop you, but when he spanked you, that's when you had enough. Girl, if you don't go sit down.
That would have freaked me out. Like, okay, I am engaged to a man that picked me out simply because he is angry at his deceased biological mother who abandoned him, and I look like her, and so do all the other women he's ever pursued. Oh, I'm out.
Right. I was like, there's just so many red flags that have come up, and I just don't understand how this book is so popular. But popular in the way of everybody says they love it, and it's got so many things, like so many things going on. It just,
oh my God, I'm dead at this comment from Troy.
Oh God, I'm scared. No, like he legit verbatim, I like to spank women who look like my crackhead mom. Oh yeah, he did straight up say it.
He did, He did, and she was just like, okay,
and she was like, okay.
Yes, she was like, okay, well, have you talked to your therapist about this? I'm like, girl, if you don't give him his ring back and get out of that room.
Like, listen, ma'am. For some reason, you are infatuated with this man, and this man is broken. Like, if you had any homegirls who cared, everybody would have been like, you don't need him. Use him for dick and go on, sis. What are you doing?
I mean, that to me, that was the overarching message that I got from this entire series, including the movies, was it doesn't matter who someone really is, as long as you just constantly want to have sex with them all the time and your chemistry is there, then you can overlook everything else.
Considering in the movie they had the same amount of chemistry as poop on the bottom of my shoe.
Well, that's what happens when the casting director chooses actors that can't stand each other and actually hated each other the whole time of filming. It's kind of hard to hide that.
It's just like, wow. Oh my God, it really would be a great horror film.
It kind of
like, she's about to marry him and then she realizes that he's like batshit crazy. Yo, that would be a great, because then she'd have to like spend the whole movie trying to get away from him. Listen,
yes. And she can't because he's like tracking her. He always knows how to find her.
Oh my gosh. What is the name of that movie? It has Shania Lathan and Mike Ealy in it.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh crap.
All the time on YouTube.
Thing where he started off being like this amazing dude. And then it was like, oh, he cuckoo. And she tried to leave him and he went crazy. Crap. What is the name of that movie?
I'm trying to remember it too. The movie is called, I'm Googling it, The Perfect Guy.
Oh, yes. Okay. So there's precedence behind this. I could totally get down with this movie.
Okay. Well, we have exhausted that topic, I think. And just in time too.
Right. Look at us. We stayed in that 1 hour and 30 minute mark. But again, don't forget, you guys can come back and hang out with us on Sunday. Yes. We're definitely talking about Miss Mariah Carey because I'm sure she's about to give us all types of things to discuss. So even if you don't read the book, if you don't mind spoilers, come join us. Or if you want to read the book and then check us out later, either way, thank you guys so much for coming back. We appreciate all of you guys who have popped in, commented, all of that stuff. You guys are always appreciated.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We really appreciate your support. Go check out the latest Patreon podcast. It is up. And if you had just tuned in the last 30 minutes or so, you can definitely go back and watch the playback. You can just rewind it all the way to the beginning to catch what we talked about at the beginning.
But until next time, stay good, stay hydrated, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.